Hi, this is Dr. Toni Alvarado, and you are watching or listening to Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast. I'm so delighted to have you here with us again this week for another informative conversation. We're going to be talking today about something that is not often talked about in our community, and that is the issue of food allergies. I have with me today a wonderful guest who is going to educate us and enlighten us and hopefully motivate us concerning food allergies and how we can protect ourselves, our families, our children, and our communities from food allergies. The Bible says we perish for the lack of knowledge. And one of the goals of this podcast is to bring information and inspiration to our community so that we can be healthy, spirit, soul, and body. And so we'll be right back in just a moment with my guest for this week. All right, I am in the podcast studio today with a wonderful woman that a smart young woman that I think you all need to know and meet, and that is in the person of Miss Anita Roach. She is the Vice President of Community Programs and Education for the organization known as FARE. FARE, and FARE stands for Food Allergy Research and Education. FARE's mission is to improve the quality of life and the health of individuals with food allergies and to provide them hope through the promise of new treatments. Anita has 9 years of experience in developing and managing patient-centered research and programs. In her previous roles at the National Sleep Foundation and Lupus Foundation of America, she partnered with patients to identify outcomes that mattered most and to develop data-driven solutions. Anita is skilled at communicating complex and technical information to patient and professional communities and has several publications in the Journal of Arthritis and Rheumatology and Sleep Health. She has a master's degree from Georgetown University in biochemistry. I told y'all she's smart, right? All right. Will you help me welcome to our podcast conversation this week, Ms. Anita Roach? Hi, Anita.
Hi, Dr. Alvarado. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And I'm really excited to join you today for today's conversation.
I am excited to have you with us. So, Anita, we were introduced through Reverend James Olson and Pastor Karen Belton, who invited me to sit on the National Faith Council for FARE. And because when I got the invitation to be a part of the National Faith Council, you know, it just something in me leaped because it is certainly a part of my passion. To make sure that our community is whole and healthy and that we are living the life that I believe Jesus came for us to live, the life that we might live life and live it more abundantly. But how can we live that abundant life if we're sick, if we're unhealthy, if we're broke down, right? So my 29 years in pastoral ministry has collided with my passion for health and wellness. And I find myself now very passionate about teaching in this space, educating our community in this space, and being an example of how to care for your body. Not just our bodies, but our mental health, our relationships matter, our financial lives matter, just that holistic approach to living. And so this intersection between faith and wellness is very, very important to me. And so when I was asked to be a part of the council and then to meet you and to be a part of the meetings with you, I knew that part of my way of serving FAIR would be to have you come onto this podcast and share with our community. So thank you again for accepting the invitation and for the work that you're doing with FAIR. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're so happy to have you as part of our Faith Council. The faith community is so important as we tackle this chronic disease. And so really appreciate you being a part of it and being able to talk about food allergy today.
Thank you. So Anita, tell me what motivated you to go into this work with food allergies specifically. Now I see your background in just health in general with the Lupus Foundation and the National Sleep Foundation, your work and your articles. I need to go read some of your articles on arthritis and rheumatology because that's a disease that has plagued my family down through the years. My mother had a degenerative rheumatoid arthritis. My niece passed away in 2009, and she had JRA, which is juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and several members of my family have really suffered with rheumatoid arthritis. So I want to go and read your article on that as well. So I'm going to make sure I follow up with you and maybe even have you come back on the podcast and let's have that conversation about rheumatoid arthritis and how that's impacted us as women and people of color in general. So what motivated you to go into this work with food allergy research?
So Dr. Alvarado, as you mentioned, almost for a decade, I've been engaged in patient-centered work. Whether it is advocacy or research or education at the various health-related nonprofits I worked at. But what really drew me to food allergy and to FAIR specifically was that I come from a family of people with food allergy. For the most part, it's been shellfish allergy, parents, aunts, and uncles. And it just so happens that shellfish is a huge part of our diet, just our community's diet where I'm from. And so it was always really stressful. And I saw what it was like to be isolated by not being able to partake in certain foods. So FAIR was just a perfect mix of my interest in patient advocacy and engagement, and plus that personal history with food allergy. And then what I would come to later find out with my youngest daughter, she has a food allergy, an egg allergy to be specific.
Okay.
And so becoming a mother of someone with food allergy also, even though that was after my time starting at FAIR, that really took a whole new light of what it means to live with food allergy for myself and my family.
Okay. So your personal journey with it inspired you to go into this work professionally, which I think it's really good. And oftentimes the thing that becomes the thing that we struggle with sometimes become a part of our mission in life. And so that's really, really good. So according to your research and the work that you've done in food allergy research and education, can you talk to us a little bit about how food allergies develop in individuals?
Absolutely. So the current research really points to what we're eating or maybe what we're not eating early in life as potentially one of the main drivers of developing food allergy.
Okay.
So for the past 20 years or so, the recommendation up until a few years ago was that babies in the first year of life should be avoiding common allergens like peanut, egg, and other allergens for fear of developing food allergy. But what we've recently learned a few years ago with the Learning Early About Peanut or LEAP study was that in the case of babies who were at moderate to high risk of developing peanut allergy, introducing peanuts between 4 and 6 months and really early in life reduced the risk of developing peanut allergy by about 81%.
Okay.
And so that landmark study has led FAIR to partner with Northwestern University on a study to examine all of the common top 9 allergens to see whether or not early introduction between 4 to 6 months of life can also reduce the risk of food allergy. The LEAP study also changed national guidelines from the American Academy of Pediatrics, NIH, and most recently in the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, which now states that there's no reason to avoid allergens in the first year of life, as long as they're prepared in an age-appropriate manner. And they also talk about, in fact, at least with peanut, we know that earlier introduction of peanut can reduce the risk of peanut allergy. So
Wow.
there are other theories. That is one of the leading ones. There's also potentially environmental factors and skin barrier factors, but we believe having that diverse diet early on can help.
So having a diverse diet early in life can
Mhm.
help you. That's interesting. So you're saying that according to this study, this LEAP study,
Yep.
that if we introduce certain foods to our children between 4 and 6 months.
Yeah, so when they are developmentally ready to start eating foods, and so that's a conversation that parents should have with their doctor about
Okay.
their pediatrician, their child's pediatrician, about when their child's ready to start eating those foods. But yes, as soon as they're developmentally ready, eating those foods early on, around 6 months of age.
Okay. Okay. So when these food allergies, have you noticed any of those? If a child, I don't know if the study speaks to this, but if a child, you introduce these foods early on and you see that they have an allergy, how does that work? So if they have an allergic reaction to peanut butter or something like that at an early age, does that tell us that they'll grow out? Will they grow out of it, or is it something that they'll live with for the rest of their lives?
Great question. So, as it relates to the LEAP study, actually, the guidance that subsequently came out based on that research really is talking about the majority of babies with low to mild risk of developing food allergy, encouraging at home eating those foods like peanut early and often. So it's diet diversity. So that often piece is really important. Parents can't just feed the baby once and then be done with it. It really has to be often. But
Okay.
then with babies who are at a higher risk of developing food allergy, and to determine whether or not your baby's at a higher risk, it's really important to have these conversations with a pediatrician to determine that. But for those babies, the introduction might take place in an allergist office or a pediatrician's office. The guidance is still the same, but parents will have to work more closely with their doctor to start introducing those foods.
Okay. So now, what I want to ask, I'm going to play the devil's advocate for a minute here. Okay. So a lot of the things that you're saying, I get it, and it's good information to have, and certainly good information for us to share in our community. But what happens in situations where, because having a pediatrician, having a doctor, allergist to go to, it's a privileged thing.
Yeah.
So how do we help communities that are on the lower income spectrum, or communities of color, communities that are on the margins, get this kind of information out to their community, or assisting them with these services? Is FAIR doing anything about that, or is there any other resources out there for families? Because to suggest, going to a pediatrician, that's a privilege.
Yeah.
Allergens, allergist, that's a privileged thing. And so when our health care system like it is, it supposes that people, when you say the majority, who is the majority doesn't often look like us.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So, access to care early in life, we all know, is a huge issue and a
mhm,
big determinant of whether or not people will thrive earlier in life or not. And so,
mhm.
that early access to care is critical.
Access,
And so,
yes.
yeah. And so, what FAIR is working to do is to make sure that these resources are available to all people with food allergy, or all parents actually, because we're trying to prevent food allergy by working with various partners, whether it's different programs like Text for Baby, or working closely with partners at WIC,
Oh,
or through our Fair Clinical Network and the doctors that we work with there. And most importantly, through community organizations and community partners like faith-based leaders, getting the information out to all of these different stakeholders. Because if we can get this information out, which there's a lot of easily understandable information on this topic, but to your point, you got to know that this information is out there, that you're supposed to be reading this information,
exactly.
or else it doesn't matter how easy it is to understand and to incorporate.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
we are working to do is make sure that all stakeholders are educated and understand this information, and so that they can take it back to their communities to make sure all new parents have this vital information. And so really it brings us back to the need for our community access program,
Yes. Which
which
you're
also,
over, right? That's
yeah.
the area that you lead for fair. Good. Say more about that.
So our community access program, we launched it earlier this year, and
Mhm.
we launched the community access program after a series of roundtable discussions we had at FAIR, where we brought in experts from various areas within diversity, equity, inclusion, and access to
Mhm.
better understand why and how community nonprofits like FAIR can reach all parts of the foodology community, including Black, Latino, and other communities that are often underrepresented, as you mentioned. And so, through this series of roundtable discussions with these thought leaders, we came to understand the importance for us to be working in communities, not just at the national level, but in communities, working with people that are on the ground in order to reach the audiences that truly need this information
Mhm.
and for which it's hard to access.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so from those roundtable discussions, we developed the community access program earlier this year
Mhm.
and piloted that program in Newark, New Jersey.
Mhm.
It's a two-phase project where
Mhm.
in phase one, we're looking to understand the unmet needs of
Mhm.
the local community,
Mhm.
which we're wrapping up now. And then in a phase two that will start later this year and through 2022, developing the programs, resources, and support networks necessary for people with food allergy in that community to live well.
Okay.
And that really centers around working with the community partners, local churches, community organizations, federally qualified healthcare centers, wellness centers, and other areas that people frequent in these communities to make sure that the staffing is trained on food allergy, that
Okay.
they understand the importance of food allergy, and they're disseminating information on food allergy, like how to potentially prevent peanut allergy.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Okay. Wow. So you were talking earlier about, I want to go back to something, and this is good information, and I'm hoping that those of you that are listening, if you're leading organizations, if you're a part, for example, I'm a pastor, and I would like to see how our church could get more of this information out through our health ministry, and a lot of churches have health ministries. And so if you're a part of a health ministry, you can we can connect you with FAIR and help you get connected so you can be a part of the solution. Some of you all have your own nonprofits that are listening, or you work in organizations where you might be able to get this information out. Many of you all are educators and school teachers. Maybe we could partner with FAIR to get some information to your school, to so that we can make sure that the food that we're feeding our children in our schools are not killing them, for lack of a better word. And then also, some of you all may be a part of other organizations. Like, for example, I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and we have a women's health initiative that we work on, and other organizations like the Links and others who I know are concerned about health and wellness in our community. So as you're listening to this podcast, please don't just listen, but let's see how we can, as a community, work together and partner with organizations like FAIR to get this information out and assist our communities. You may have issues in your own family that you need this information for. Maybe you can have a Zoom meeting at home with your family members or something, and have somebody come in and talk to you all about this kind of thing, or you get the information and share it with your family. During the holidays would be a great time too, because we're talking about food allergies, and there's a lot of eating going on during the holidays. And so this may be a good opportunity to kind of make sure that the foods that we're eating at our family gatherings are healthy for everybody. And so, as you said earlier, which is going to lead me to my next question, Anita, you said that when you knew what it was like to sit at the table and have other family members not be able to be at the table because of what was being served. And so can you talk to us a little bit more about, in your research and what you've seen even personally, how does food allergies affect the quality of life for individuals and families?
Yes, and I want to add one thing to what you said, Dr. Alvarado, is if you're out there with a nonprofit organization, a 504c3, 501c3, and would like to receive information from FAIR, we do have our FAIR Collaborators program, which we provide monthly newsletters that are meant to provide you with the information you need to give to communities and to employees and other stakeholders. So definitely would love to provide you all with that information as well.
Excellent. Definitely. We'll get that out. We can get that out. I'd love to get that out through my foundation, my Sisters Keeper Foundation for Women, and through my the Harmonize Your Life Women's Self-Care Network. Every prong that I'm a part of, I want to get more information out. So talk to us about how is food allergies impacting the quality of life for individuals and families?
It's a tremendous side effect of having food allergy is the psychosocial aspects, or anxiety, depression, and other mental health concerns related to having food allergy. A couple of variables are contributing to that more negative quality of life that sometimes people with food allergies may face. Part of it is that the number one way right now to manage food allergy is avoiding your allergen. And so going back to our conversation about access, if you have the means to purchase appropriate substitutions and alternative foods, and have the means to make sure that you're able to avoid your allergen, it's tough and it's a struggle and it can provide anxiety, but you're talking about a whole nother level of quality of life changes and anxiety if you can't afford those substitutions.
Yeah.
And
I can see why that would have psychological and emotional impact, because seriously, food is a social event. It's not just nutrition, but our food and what we eat has a lot. People communicate love through food. We connect. How many times when we want to connect with someone, a family member or a friend, or even a new acquaintance, we do it around food. Let's have lunch. Let's go to dinner. Let's go to breakfast. And so food becomes a family event. It becomes a community event. And then for people of color, our foods are part of our festivals. It's a part of our rituals. It's a part of, and particularly people of faith. How many times do we have events at church and it's accompanied with food? And so when people have allergies in our community, in our church, in our family, and then they can't participate in those rituals, those events, then there's this feelings of isolation, loneliness, frustration. Yeah. So it's like a reverberate, and you never really think about that.
You don't. And I understand when we come and we talk to talk about foodology to new communities that we're engaging. And that's exactly what they say. I never thought about that. Sodium levels that we're providing our community isn't always at the top of that thinking. And it makes sense. And that's just why we're excited. No, they're more than willing to make accommodations where everyone is safe and included. But part of knowing, and so back to the conversation about quality of life and anxiety, being able, especially for children who are growing up into young adulthood with food allergy, being able to stand up and advocate for yourself and say, hey, I can't eat these foods and I
Mm.
need an alternative can also bring a lot of stress and anxiety and fear. But what we see is that as children are able to transition into their teenage years, young adulthood, and are able to advocate for themselves, it provides a lot of strength to them. And it's not like that's going to be the only thing they ever have to advocate for themselves about in life, especially in our community. We know that's
Yeah.
not the case, but it's just them building those skills can really help with that decreased quality of life people can
Yeah.
face with food
Yeah.
allergy.
And I'm thinking right now about a very, very sad occurrence, a recent occurrence. I have a friend who has a friend. So it's not this family is not, I don't know this family personally, but my girlfriend, one of my best girlfriends, it is a quaint is this is a friend of hers, a college friend, hometown friend that she grew up around or whatever. And she was just sharing with me, it's amazing. And I was telling her that I had you coming on to the show and on the podcast, and she knew about the work that I was doing with the Faith Council with FAIR. And we were having this conversation, and she called me, I want to say maybe about 2, 3 weeks ago. And her son has a peanut allergy. And so we were talking about it, and she called me, she was distraught because a friend of hers, 22-year-old daughter, went out to dinner with her friends, just what young people do. They got together and went out to eat. They're in college, went out to eat at a restaurant, and the young woman had peanut allergy, and whatever they cooked, I think the food was cooked with peanut oil. And her family had, she had been told all her life to keep her EpiPen with her. And this one time, she didn't have her EpiPen with her. She ate something that had an allergy and went into shock, anaphylactic shock, and died.
Mm,
And
yeah,
that is, I mean, I can't even imagine the pain of her mother, her family, her friends who were there with her eating,
yeah,
the restaurant owner, and everyone. I mean, so it's just, it can be deadly. And I think that people, I don't know if we realize how deadly food allergies can be in our communities. And so, yeah, this educating our young people. And my friend was saying, she told her son, I know it's not cool for you. You don't think it's cool to be walking around with your EpiPen, but I need you to have your EpiPen. She said, it was a wake up call to them because they had gotten lax with him carrying his EpiPen. And when this happened, she was like, oh no, we gotta, course correct. And so she said, she told him, I know it's not cool to be out with your friends with an EpiPen, but this is what you have to do. And
yeah.
so, yeah, it could be, unfortunately, very deadly for us.
It can. And so some of what we're finding with our community access program is that unfortunately, there are people with food allergy who don't even realize that they should be carrying an epinephrine auto injector. And so, maybe accidentally exposed to their allergen and may think, and what we're finding in the data is many think that antihistamines like Benadryl can stop a severe anaphylactic reaction or severe allergic reaction, and it can't. And so there's a lot of misinformation and not enough information on this topic of carrying epinephrine. Is one of the top priorities we're finding with our community access program. And so what we're looking to do is to build workshops and educational seminars for communities in the community, led by the community in partnership with FAIR, to bring more awareness to the importance of epinephrine autoinjectors. The awareness that they come in different sizes. There are not a lot of options, but there are different sizes that might be more suitable for young people or for boys that are potentially not carrying a purse or bag with them. And there are affordable options like patient assistant programs. There's a lot of options when it comes to how to best access epinephrine autoinjectors. But it starts with even knowing that you need to carry one. It's just such a barrier, that knowledge gap.
Yeah. That I hear you, that knowledge gap. And I like what you said. You said programs that are led in the community or led by the community for the community.
Yeah.
And that's so powerful because people tend to listen to people who look like them, who have similar lifestyle or social, economic status, whatever. So we can relate to one another in a lot of ways. And so a lot of times it is important. So for communities of color, African Americans, Hispanics, and others that may not have access to some of these things, and maybe even some of our families that are in white spaces. You know what I'm saying? Just because they are part of the majority culture does not mean they have access if they're living in rural. I live in Georgia, and there are a lot of rural places where hospitals are miles away. And one of the factors of living in a place like Georgia is we don't have a rapid transit system that goes everywhere. So it's hard to live here without a car. So if you don't have access to transportation to get to these kind of places or to get this information or go where this information is given, having someone that can come to those communities or be in those communities, educating someone in that community that can get that information out is so vital.
Absolutely. And as we expand and look to expand the community access program, we are looking to going to rural places because we recognize the disparities that exist there. And to your point, if a hospital is an hour away, and we know that not all ambulances carry epinephrine autoinjectors, it's going to be even more important for families and individuals with food allergies in rural areas to have not just one set of epinephrine autoinjectors, but two, and really having a plan for if accidental exposure happens. So it's an important community for us to reach out to as well.
Okay. Wow. So what are some common food allergies that you've seen within communities of color?
So within communities of color, anyone can experience, there's hundreds of allergens. Like the number of allergens are pretty expansive, but the top common allergens, there are top 9 common allergens. They're milk, wheat, sesame, tree nuts, soy, fish, shellfish, and peanuts. And
say
really
again slower, just so somebody's writing.
Absolutely. Milk, wheat, sesame, tree nuts, which include Brazil nuts, almonds, cashews.
Okay.
Soy, fin fish, shellfish, and peanuts.
Wow. Okay.
But
those are the top 9, you said?
Those are the top 9 common allergens.
Okay.
And so as you're reading labels, actually sesame was just included as the top 9 allergen by the federal government. And so in 2023, manufacturers and brands will start to have to label clearly sesame on packages.
Okay.
But as of right now, the other top 8 allergens, they will always be highlighted and called out on packages that of food that contain those allergens. They manufacturers have to do that because of them being the top 8 and then eventually top 9 allergen.
Okay.
And so it's a bit easier to know what products have your allergen in it if you have one of those top 8 allergens.
Mm-hmm.
If you have allergens outside of the top 8, it can be really hard to know definitively whether or not products include your allergen. And so label reading is so critical for people with food allergy and families to be skilled at, to understand and try to identify which foods might be right for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the Black community, what we are starting to see with research is that there does seem to be a propensity for Black children and adults to have shellfish and food and finfish allergies a bit more than white and Hispanic counterparts. So
Okay.
there does seem to be some disparities there.
Mm-hmm.
And what the research points to is that in urban areas, especially, there are more things like dust mites
Mm-hmm.
and cockroaches and other environmental allergens
Mm-hmm.
that in the body mimic shellfish allergens.
Wow.
And so there could be a connection between environmental factors like dust
Mm-hmm.
and developing shellfish allergy.
Wow. Wow. Whew, this is something. And we're in a global pandemic, right? Still, we're not out yet. I know that people are kind of gone back to doing certain things, and people are gathering more, and but I did you notice any correlation between just food allergies and how people handle food allergies during the pandemic? Because this pandemic kind of changed the way we did everything, and people were home, sheltered in, eating more, and gaining what they call the COVID-19 pounds. So
Yep.
did you notice any correlations in terms of a rise of food allergies or anything during this time?
It may be too soon to tell regarding how prevalence might have changed with food allergy over
Okay.
the past year and a half, 2 years. But what we do know is that with the pandemic, we saw more people food insecure, more people unsure where their next meal was going to come, or if they had enough food for the
Oh.
month and wouldn't run out. And so food insecurity, when you add on food allergy or celiac disease or other food related diseases, it only makes it more challenging to find enough safe and affordable foods. And so I think that one of the big things that came out of the pandemic, right? Because more people are home. And so I think people have had more control maybe over what they were eating compared to when children were in school or when we were going out more. So there was a little bit more control from that standpoint.
But
But
it seemed that people were buying more things like wheat and more, like when we first started, it was like you couldn't find milk in the store, you couldn't find bread and toilet tissue. I don't know.
never understood that one, but yeah. And it's true. So families, we conducted a major study which it happened to kind of fall in the middle of the study fell into March 2020. So you can
Okay.
imagine, right in the beginning where there was no toilet paper or anything else on shelves. And so through this study, the Food Allergy Consumer Journey,
Okay.
we asked families, we asked about 1,200 patients and caregivers about their consumerism practices as it relates to food allergy. And what we saw was that many families were having food allergy families were having to stop at multiple stores in order to
Yeah.
get enough of the safe foods that they were looking for. They
Wow.
were needing to stock up on these safe alternatives and substitutions. Um, because they were afraid that they wouldn't have enough or they would run out and not be able to find enough.
Wow.
So even people who traditionally did not face food insecurity, the pandemic made it much more tougher to find enough foods and enough affordable food And so people with food allergy really felt the brunt of that.
Wow. Wow. Whew. Okay. So you've already shared with us how much work FAIR is doing, which I applaud and appreciate. FAIR and the awareness that you all are bringing to food allergies, the education that you're giving, particularly to communities of color. I know you're giving it to everyone, but I know you all have specifically recently started, part of your job was to help get it out to communities of color and with your community access arm. And then the other thing is what I want to know is how can faith communities, how can we be more actively involved? Faith communities, schools, sororities, fraternities, women's organizations. And we talked earlier and we threw out an admonition to these organizations to get involved. But what is the way that the most effective way for us to get involved with the work you're doing?
So first, please email me because I want to work with, and we want to work with all of you. So my email address is.
I'm going to put it on the screen because I think I have it. I'm going to put it on the screen, Anita.
Yes. So it's aroach@foodology.org. And so we saw with the pandemic, with COVID-19 and the push for vaccination, just how powerful the Black church and community organizations are when it comes to bringing trusted information to community members about how to keep themselves safe and how to, and whether or not certain medical practices were right for them. And we saw the power of the faith-based community in getting so many vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccinations. And I think that there's a similar play here when it comes to food allergy. Not only are faith-based organizations such a vital messenger to communities about health and wellness, but as you said, food is often the center of different celebrations. And so what FAIR is able to do is provide organizations like churches information on how to keep people safe that have food allergy that might be partaking in your food banks or Thanksgiving dinners or other meals that are happening so that we can make sure everyone can participate and participate safely. We are also looking to better understand how your community is impacted by food allergy. So we have short surveys we can take to better understand. We can build customized food allergy 101 sessions virtually and hopefully eventually in person to make sure that everyone understands how to keep people with food allergy safe. And so the important thing with food allergy is it's not just the person with food allergy and their family that needs to know about food allergy. It's everyone in the community because we all have a role in keeping people with food allergy safe and included.
Wow, that's good. And so Anita, I'm just putting up on the band here so those that can see, and I'm going to share them out loud for those that are watching listening. If you're listening to this podcast and not watching us on YouTube, first thing is go to my YouTube channel at Dr. Toni G. Alvarado. Go to Dr. Toni G. Alvarado YouTube channel. And so you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, like and subscribe to it. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It will alert you when new episodes like this one is has been uploaded to the YouTube channel. We do so every Monday during our podcast series. We put up a new video every Monday with information like this that is vital to our community. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, if I can get my numbers up on my subscription, then videos like this will come up more readily in the search engine. That's the way YouTube is and the Google searches are. So the more people liking and subscribing and sharing this kind of information, then more positive content can be out there. We have a whole lot of garbage that's out there and people sharing all kind of videos that really do not uplift our community. And we need more information like this that is informing, inspiring, and uplifting our community. So please go to my YouTube channel at Dr. Toni G. Alvarado and subscribe to my YouTube channel. But I'm putting up Anita's information here. We're talking today to Anita Roach. She is the Vice President of Community Access and Affairs with FAIR, which is the Food Allergy Research and Education organization that she is a part of, that she works for. FAIR's Facebook page is there on the page on the channel at Food Allergy Research and Education. You can find them on Facebook at Food Allergy Research and Education. You can also follow them on IG at Food Allergy, Same on Twitter at Food Allergy. Or you can go to the FAIR YouTube channel, and they have all kind of resources there. I actually went through the channel the other day in preparation for my conversation with Anita today. And so there's all kind of stuff. This morning, I got a notification from FAIR YouTube channel because I subscribe to the channel. All right. So please go there as well and learn more and more. Get as much information as you can about how you can help yourself, help your family, and your community. Again, Anita has said we can email her at aroach@foodallergy.org. aroach@foodallergy.org, and email her if you're interested in getting more of this information. It's giving out more of this information and knowing how you can partner with FAIR in getting this information through your church group, through your sorority, your fraternity, your nonprofit organization, your school, whatever it is, or just your family. If you need to want to educate your family more on this information. You are listening to the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast with your host, Dr. Toni G. Alvarado. You can find us on Anchor, Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or you can listen to us every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. at the lifeatl.live internet radio. Please, again, go to my YouTube channel at Dr. Toni G. Alvarado so that you can continue to follow this podcast. You can also go to my website at drtonialvarado.com, drtonialvarado.com. And there you can also join the Harmonize Your Life Women's Self-Care Network. This work is being produced by, this podcast is supported by those who partner with me in the Harmonize Your Life Self-Care Network. It costs money to produce this type of information, this podcast. And so those who partner with me, who join the network, not only does it benefit you, but it benefits others because you're helping us to get this kind of information out to the community. There are also other resources that you can take part in through our self-care network. There's more information, inspiration, gathering, and connecting with women who are concerned about self-care for themselves and for other women. We have retreats that we do. We have all sorts of things that we do. You can also join us in Tea Time with Dr. Toni Alvarado, which is our once a month self-care network support group meeting. All right. So thank you again, Anita, for joining us today. Thank you for being our dialogue partner, enlightening our community, and just being who you are. I'm loving the connection here. I'm loving the connection here. I want to just ask you to give one. Oh, girl, please. Thank you. I mean, and it's so good to see a sister doing this kind of work. All right. It's good.
I'd love to be back. So thank you for having me.
I'm going to have you back because we're going to have some more conversation around this and rheumatoid arthritis and lupus and other things that our community needs to be made aware of. Do you have one final word of hope that you can give to an individual or family dealing with food allergies?
Yes, the treatment horizon is grand. And so with more support, more attention to food allergy, you can find out a lot at foodallergy.org. We will one day have better treatments and therapies for food allergy. I would love to be out of business, and I see that coming for food allergy. So prevention information, it's coming, it's there, it's building. And then for those with food allergy, there are treatments on the way that'll help you live better with food allergy.
Thank you again, Anita, for being such a wonderful dialogue partner and educating our community. We perish for the lack of knowledge, people, saints, members, and friends. We perish for the lack of knowledge. And so get this information, get this knowledge, apply it, and help enlighten someone else. All right. Thank you again for joining us this week on the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast with your host, Dr. Toni G. Alvarado. I'll see you again next week with another intriguing podcast conversation. See you soon. Hi, this is Dr. Toni Alvarado. I am so delighted about bringing the Harmonize Your Life podcast to you. Would you do me a favor? If you are enjoying this podcast, would you email me at hello@drtonialvarado.com? I want to hear from you. I want your feedback. I want to know if there are any other topics that you are interested in as it relates to wellness, self-care, nutrition, or just overall bringing harmony into your life. Email me, contact me at hello@drtonialvarado.com.